Hi, so I have a couple of extra comments about Dr. Dewi Evans. So on my YouTube feed there's a video called How Sociopaths Actually Work. It's well worth a look. It's by a lady called Patrice Gagne, or Gagne, Gagne. She has a doctorate in clinical psychology. She is also a diagnosed sociopath, and she was talking a bit about what it's like. So some of her comments that are really useful in this case. Generally speaking, she says she has a tendency to blink less, have a flatter effect, and be less engaging. Now that's not how she was on the video, but as she says, she makes the effort to come over as more engaging, and she described what it's like inside. So she has this internal pressure which kind of builds up into an impulse to be hurtful or to hurt someone or to engage in destructive behaviour. So it might not necessarily be hurting a person, but you know, it could be like breaking into someone's house or something like that, and it releases the pressure, and she says it also gives her a high, so it looks as if it gives the dopamine hit. So in a way this is like the opposite to self-harming. You know, you're releasing pressure but by another means. And she says she does not get any dopamine hit from constructive behaviour. So normally, you know, if you or I did something nice for someone, it would make us feel nice. She says that does absolutely nothing for her. It's completely the opposite way round. So where does that fit in with Dr. Dewi Evans? Now, obviously, I can't diagnose him, and if you're saying, oh, someone's a sociopath, you can call them a sociopath because it's just a word. But I had a look at, I found this video, Talk TV, Lucy Letby exclusive, the man who took down evil and depraved baby murdering killer nurse. Okay, and I've chosen that because it's got a nice amount of footage of Dewi Evans talking. Now, generally speaking, he's not someone who does make a lot of facial or eye movements, but even so, there seems to be this, I get this uncanny valley effect with him. Looking at him, I always feel like something isn't quite right, and I think in every picture you see of him, he has exactly the same face, as in the same expression. So, you know, not smiling, not laughing, not happy, not sad, is just this emotionless, cold stare. His mouth doesn't move position, his eyes are always in the same position, they're always closed or open, whatever, exactly the same amount. So no matter how many photographs you see of him, he always looks exactly the same. I realised actually that is a little bit unusual. So Dewi Evans, okay, he was involved with the Robbie Powell case in 1990, and Linda and Bonnie Lewis at a similar time. Now those are big cases that have been talked about in other videos, but basically Robbie Powell sadly died, and Bonnie Lewis was taken away from her parents on his say-so. And also we have the Lucy Letby case, and I'm saying whether she's innocent or guilty. You know, he's been involved in these big cases. Now, he doesn't really seem to be showing much emotion about it. Now, given I wasn't there in the 1990s, well, I wasn't around him in the 1990s, and I didn't see how he might have reacted to it. But this is, with Robbie Powell, something went very, very wrong, and he sadly died. Bonnie Lewis, well, she had a perfectly healthy appendix removed. She ended up separated from her parents, and you'd think most people who had a connection with that, you know, they'd be upset, or maybe it would change how they would practice. I don't see any evidence that he has had any second thoughts or any remorse or anything like that. And again, this happened quite a long time ago, so we don't know what evidence is out there. But I think most normally, if you're a GP or a consultant, you would feel something, you maybe would have doubts. Now, honestly, you have to keep going, because you've got to be professional, and things, you know, do happen. So there is that. So in the content here, he is talking about the Lucy Letby case, and when you're watching him talking, he does have a very flat affect. He doesn't blink that much. I mean, he does blink, but honestly not that much. And he doesn't really engage, so he keeps his head and his whole body very still when he's talking. Now, some people move around more than others, but that is something I noticed, that his face, you know, his mouth went up and down, but there's very, very little eye movement. I mean, it wasn't just there was less blinking. He's got this dead ahead stare, and it doesn't look like it's anything to do with aging, or, you know, maybe any problems associated with aging, anything like that. It just looks like this dead, cold stare. And what I did notice when I mean, obviously he was talking about how he went over the evidence that harm had come to the babies, and there was no, well, there was some emotion, but I'll come to that. There was no appropriate emotion, because, I mean, you're talking about babies here. In fact, what we had was kind of the opposite. If you watch that video and put it up to full screen so that you can see his face more clearly, when he's getting to the point where he's talking about a murder, or he's saying Lucy Letby did something, or he discovered there had been, you know, a murder, he smiles. He smiles and a glint comes into his eyes. Just watch it. You'll see what I mean. It is quite subtle, but it honestly is there. The other thing I noticed is his eyes tend to go very wide at that moment. Might just be him, but it could also be the, you know, the stimulation that is possibly coming out of it. I don't know. But there's also one of the police detectives, who I'm afraid wasn't named. He is also talking, he has a section where he is talking about how the case went, and about how they you know, investigated it, and you can see the difference between the eye movement, the body movement, and, you know, the general engagement. So there is more kind of fluctuation. Now there is one point where this chap does smile and look a bit pleased, and that is right at the end, where he's talking about how they've managed to, you know, get some closure for the parents. So, you know, he's showing that he's pleased that they've been able to do at least that. So that is appropriate. So the other thing as well, when Dewi Evans is talking and he says, well, after I think it was baby D, he asked for a full list. He said, oh, well, you know, I need a full list of who was on duty for all these babies, exactly who, you know, I need a list of the nurses, the doctors, exactly who was on duty, what times, everything. Yeah, the list, which was probably in the drawer of doom. And just to remind you, that list was drawn up as early as February 2015. So yeah, they kind of, you know, here's one I prepared earlier, a lot earlier, kind of, go figure, that list was ready and waiting, you know, after, I'm not sure which baby it was by February, but that list had been prepared very, very early. I'd say about no more than halfway through. So yeah, that says something. So that is my observations. Now obviously I can't clinically diagnose him, but from what this lady was saying, that stuck out. And when I kind of thought it over and watched the footage and see, yes, this is why he just makes my skin completely crawl. There is something completely off with this guy. You know, he's smiling at all the wrong times for starters. Anyway, please like, subscribe, and hope to see you in the next video.